Hello, and welcome back to the Survivor's Mic podcast. I'm your host, Posh, and I'm excited that we're on episode 12. And so, if you have been following through, you would notice that the past 2 weeks, there were no episodes uploaded, and that was very intentional. It's not like I just woke up one day and I thought, I'm not going to show up. It has been a lot of work behind the scenes, and it pertains the growth of the podcast and also just the direction that the podcast is headed, and also bringing in people to be part of this work, because I truly believe that I am not the only person, or I'm not the only host of this topic and this podcast. And so I'm bringing in, a few survivors that I know to do really different kinds of work to be part of this. So I'm very grateful that I have people who are on board and they want to be part of this work. But that brings me to the introduction of this series, right? And as you see on the title, it's called Beyond Survival. And so the past 11 episodes, they were just really this introduction of the fact that we have been hurt, the fact that we have survived a lot of things in life. But then there is something that has been haunting me for the past few weeks, and it has to do with, what happens beyond this? What happens beyond the fact that I went through it, it was tough, it was hard, I made it out of it, and now I'm here. Or what do I do beyond just surviving, right? And so that's where this title just pops up, and it shows up where, even for me personally, and this would be very interesting if we can be, as a community, come to a place of saying, okay, we want to go through this journey of moving beyond just surviving, right? Because I think the idea of survival itself, it comes with so much, it requires a lot of energy, it requires a lot of strength to be a survivor at all. Because you're constantly in this mode where you have to fend for yourself, where you have to survive as hard as things may be, right? And so this episode really is just to introduce this new series that we will be going through. So I will give you a few details of what's going to be happening to me personally. And, if some of you might be in that season, or have been in that season, or will be in that season. But, of late, I've really sat down with my thoughts, and I've been asking myself a lot of questions like, okay, I've worked so hard to come to a place of accepting things that have happened to me. And, half the time I've made it, right? To say, okay, I've been molested, I've been abused, I've been hurt, I've been betrayed, but here I am. I want to live on the other side of all these things happening. I want to live on the other side of I survive stuff. I want to be at peace with myself, with my story, and with who I am. So there's this journey that I've recently started of just, as little small things as coming to a place of silence, right? Because I think you would agree with me that most of us, our brain never shut down 24/7. And I say 24/7 because even when we go to bed, the reason why we dream is because our brain is still working. Our subconscious is on the go, right? And I won't lie to you, the idea of me getting into my room, getting into bed, lights off, shutting my eyes, and just forcing myself to not think about anything at all. And I time myself, I started with 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and I'm coming closer. I wouldn't say I'm doing well. I'm coming closer to 10 minutes, and it's tough. I won't lie to you. And it's very interesting how the reason why it's tough is because it's like a muscle, right? If for those of you who work out, you see the signs on your body of the efforts that you're making when you work out, right? And it's not an overnight thing. It takes time, but you have to constantly do it. And that's the same thing with the mind state, right? Like training the mind to be calm, training the mind to be, positive again, training the mind to not be fearful, to trust life, to trust the world as it is. And I think what's empowering to me about it is, if I trained my brain out of the situations I was in from my childhood, and it built up, and all that negativity, all the fear, all the lack of trust in men or people around me, not wanting to work with women because I did not have a woman or motherly figure around me. I trained my brain since I was 6 years old, using the circumstances around me, right? Which is very key. You don't just wake up one day and you decide to be, okay, I want to be a negative thinker. I want to just be fearful. I want to just, freak out over things that I don't even see. No, we trained the brain to be like that. I kept on hearing over and over again, you're a cursed person, until I started believing it. And everything else I started seeing whenever I lost an opportunity, or I went on an interview and I failed it, or it all started adding up because I submitted my mind and my thinking to that. And hear me out here. I'm not saying we should not acknowledge that the past 11 episodes were talking about how painful it was. It was acknowledging the fact that these things did happen. These things do happen. These things probably will happen, right? Because some people will experience it later on. But also coming to a place of knowing that there's a way out of that place. And I think it's very comforting to me to know that if I was able to train my brain to operate the way it was operating for the past 3 decades, I can untrain it and retrain it differently for the next 3 decades that are coming, right? Now, I think somebody will be wondering, how do you do that? So, obviously, the most important thing you want to ask yourself is, where are you grounded on, right? What is the essence of your life? What is it that you hold on to? And there's religion, there's spirituality, there's, just the self, and all these things depending on what you believe in. Again, I will say this clearly with all boldness. I'm Christian. I believe in God and in Jesus Christ. That's what I hold on to. That's who I hold on to, right? And depending on what you hold on to, that's where your focus will center, right? Or whether you want to try and check out something else that you have never checked out before. I don't give anybody a go ahead. I don't stop anybody from doing anything. But you would say, maybe, I want to check out who this Jesus is, who they talk about a lot, right? I want to explore what is it that they do when they say they meditate. That's one thing I'm doing myself, to come into the space of silence, of quiet. One of the things I know personally I've battled with is the conversations with self. I'm going to do a whole episode on that, because again, for 3 decades, I just never paid attention, and I underestimated the effects of the things that we say to ourselves, right? So currently I do meditate. I do, sometimes I do literal, silence, quiet. I just go, for like 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and I'm telling myself, and again, thoughts will always come, but I'm actually telling myself to stop and to not focus on that. And when I'm meditating, then it's more intentional, because I'm focusing on whether I wanna be at peace, or I want to say certain things over and over again to convince myself. For example, you could say I'm a positive thinker, or you could say, I'm in control of how I behave and how I react to life, right? And you just keep on saying this very same thing, really. It's very fascinating how the brain holds on to that to an extent that even when you go to bed, you're most likely going to dream about things that are in that direction, right? And so this is me trying to train my brain. Sometimes I use, scripture, Bible verses, or I use certain statements that I might have said in prayer. And I just want to keep on saying that over and over again. And I would be honest, it's been a journey. It's been a journey. And this whole intentionality started really my previous birthday in April, and because my partner is more on wellness, and he's very huge on self-care, and so we went to the sauna together, and there was one time we meditated together. And for me, I've always said, oh babe, I don't know if I can do that, I don't think my brain can shut. But again, and that's where the issue is, because I'm already telling myself that I can't shut my brain. And so in April, I kind of survived it, because it was more on the romantic side. And I'm in a happy place. My mood is more or less correct, or in the right place, so to say. But it's really after I came back home weeks later, and I was like, Pusha, you can train yourself to be like this if you choose to. And sometimes what's helpful also is to also look at this other person who practices all these healthy, practices, and they tell themselves very nice things. They do claim that they are successful even if they are not where they want to be. They endorse themselves as good people, doing good things in the world, being useful to humanity. And they are not people you read about in newspapers. But why do they do that? Because they've trained themselves over time, and they know where they're headed. It's either their goal, or they've already achieved it, or they're actually living it in this very moment. But either way, you realize sometimes it's not even the reality of where they are, but they are that positive because they've trained their brain to be in that space. And so the past weeks have been really me asking myself, I can do this, even as a survivor of whatever traumatic events they've been in my life. It's possible for me. If other people can do it, I can do it. I literally make a conscious decision to say, I want to try this out. I'm not good at it, but I will get used to it. And even now, where I'm really getting into this space of, prayer and meditation on a daily basis, I'm not always very good at it. Sometimes different kinds of thoughts are coming into my brain, but I have to bring myself back again. And that doesn't mean, okay, you're going to stop here. Just stop, whether you use meditation music or you actually use guided meditations, depending on whatever you use. You don't stop it and be like, oh, okay, I failed on this one. No. I just keep going, and I just keep doing what I'm doing. And, slowly, I actually realize I'm getting to soften up a little bit, even to myself. I'm coming to this space where I'm kind to myself. The conversations I'm having in my head, they are calmer. One of the interesting things that happened to me was there's something going on. I'm trying to switch, within the company that I work for, but I'm trying to switch departments. And so there's just this one specific department. I called the manager, and I told them, I want to switch to you. And she said, oh no, we already have enough people for that. We are not taking in any more people. And then my current boss comes to me and says, oh, they have this 2 weeks where they need people to work in that department. And then I called again, And then this was today now, just for the 2 weeks. And she cancels me again and tells me, oh, I already have people for that. And I remember just walking down the streets and I said, Portia, this means this very department is just not part of your story. Or this means it's not for now. And either way, you're going to be okay. Now, remember, I've mentioned this before. I'm one of those people who battles with rejection. It has been... I don't know anything else that have brought me pain in life more than that. And here am I having this conversation with myself under this hot, scorching heat wave in Europe. For those of you who are in Europe, you know what's happening right now. And I'm saying these things to myself and I'm at peace with it. And I'm happy with it. And I get to this place where I told myself, then I'm not going to reach out again because they have enough people. And this is not giving up. This is me realizing it's not yet. It's either not for now, or it's not yet the time, or it's never going to be part of my story. And that's okay. But I don't think if it wasn't these past weeks where I'm really putting so much strength and energy and intention in the things that I'm thinking about and the things that I'm constantly pondering on as the day is going by, I don't think I would be in that space of being able to do that. You know, it happens in a lot of situations where, or maybe I'm trying to, move because I relocate a lot. I'm not very good at staying in one place. I remember also a season where I really wanted to go somewhere. I just wanted specifically that country. And it never worked. And I thought to myself, okay, then leave it alone, And I think coming to that place is the most fulfilling thing. And I think it's that space where you could look at yourself and think, okay, I think I'm slowly walking past just survival. I'm going beyond that which has been the norm when it comes to my life. Because what has been the norm could be fear in your case. It could be, rejection for some of us who have battled with that over years, abandonment, fear of the unknown, whatever it can be. You have been so used to that because that's how your brain had been trained. But now you're switching that mindset into something that is more molding to you, right? And again, it's not something that you just wake up one day and you're like, okay, so I'm here now and I'm the queen of positive thinking and, all that good stuff. It's a process that you actually go through. And so I'm really excited and I'm looking forward to most likely the last quarter of the year because I have a few, retreats booked. I've done retreats before, but more on, with other people around me that I actually know. And so obviously you're still interacting, you're still having all this social contact and stuff like that. But this is the very first time where I'm literally going to meet a group of people who are already strangers to me. And it's if you read through the rules and regulations of those 10 days of meditation and self-seeking and no phone, no Wi-Fi for 10 good days. And so I go to bed at 10 p.m. and I'm up at 4 and they will ring a gong. I'm just trying to give you a picture of what this is. But really, if I look at myself as the person that I've always been, I would be like, there's no way I could do something like that. I would even convince myself, I'm not good at it. But I'm also in this very season where I know I want to grow. I know I want to move on. And I know I want to go beyond just the idea of being a survivor, because the energy and the strength that takes is really, it's really frustrating. It's a lot of work. And so I'm choosing to do a different type of work but in a more positive direction, right? To not always say, okay, I know I survive, I know, and I'm pushing myself and I'm forcing myself to be this ultimate strength, queen, to actually living a positive and fulfilling life where I'm very content with who I am, with my story, with where I've come from, with my faith. And I really can look at myself in the mirror and say, despite of where I am and what is happening, I'm still happy with myself, right? So this was just me giving you a hint of the direction that we are headed, but we are more now focused on beyond the idea of being a survivor, beyond just, going through, life. Because I think that's really something that most people can do, but then it's the aftermath of what then do we do with this life? Where then do I head after this point, right? So I look forward to it, and I'll definitely share, how those retreats will be going. And whenever I will be gone for the retreats, I will decide whether I would pre-record episodes and then get back when I'm back. But I'm most likely going to be completely out of touch whatsoever. But when I get back, I'm most likely going to do a whole, I don't know what to call it, different episodes of what exactly was happening. And again, I'll say this just the way I say about my faith. I'm not here to impose my beliefs on anybody, and I will also not come here to become a meditation teacher and all the good stuff. I think there are people who are gifted and talented and called to do that. I'm just taking part of it, and I'll share as much as I can share, or as much as I think is safe to share. So that being said, looking forward to it, and I'm excited. This is the new series called Beyond Survival. I'm your host, Posh, and I will see you next week.